M23 is willing to march into Kinshasa. They are very resolute. Congo has lost close to 5 million people since 1997. The minerals have very little to do with the conflict in DRC. And now the M23 is a regional force. They are not just controlling DRC because they won over the FARDC, the DRC defense unit or the army. They are controlling that region because they are the majority in eastern DRC. They comprise mostly of the Tutsi-speaking DRC citizens. One of the things that we must pay attention to is the fact that there have been peace efforts in the DRC, and especially Eastern DRC, political peace efforts. What we are now looking at, the conflict now has turned military, but it wasn't always a military conflict, it was a political conflict. When the East African Reactionary Force took over, they managed to negotiate some kind of leeways with M23, and M23 had ceded certain grounds in eastern DRC on the basis that the DRC national government was going to give or to yield to certain demands that the M23 had met. So it's not just that they are controlling that region, they are doing so because they are the majority, and there are certain interests that the M23 is protecting within eastern DRC. Now, the interests that M23 is protecting have to be looked at in light of the background of the conflict. The first ever protracted DRC conflict was the first Congo War in the early 90s. Now, what happened was that the Tutsi-speaking citizens, I'm calling them citizens because they are rightfully citizens of the DRC because of the colonial borders, had been sidelined by the then government of Mobutu Sese Seko. Now, one individual came across as a defender of the Tutsi-speaking minorities of the eastern DRC, and that individual was Laurent Kabila. Laurent Kabila was a defender of what was called, they were called the Banyamulenge, the Tutsi-speaking DRC citizens. At the time, we were at the height of the genocide in Rwanda. Now, after the genocide in Rwanda, the Hutus who had killed the millions, close to a million Tutsi-speaking Rwandese, had fled into eastern DRC. They then set up militias in eastern DRC in a bid to still eliminate the Tutsi-speaking DRC citizens and those who had fled the genocide in Rwanda. It is at that point that the Tutsi-speaking individuals within eastern DRC also set up counter-militias. And those counter-militias were supported by Laurent Kabila before he came into power. So when Laurent Kabila, with the support of Paul Kagame, came into power, they now sought to reintegrate the Tutsi-speaking minorities in eastern DRC into the national government. But that agreement did not last for long because Laurent Kabila then reneged on the agreement that had been entered into, not between him and Paul Kagame, but between him and those Tutsi-speaking minorities in eastern DRC. He then sidelined them in government and further, pushed them into eastern DRC, where they have been domiciled for the rest of the years. When his son Joseph Kabila took over, he cemented that ostracization of the Tutsis in eastern DRC. And naturally, you would expect that people who have been oppressed would rise up against that oppression. Hence, the M23. So M23 is about nationalization of the Tutsi-speaking Congolese in eastern DRC. It's just that. It's a political question and one that has been escaped by succeeding presidents after Laurent Kabila and the East African community at large. Now, when you talk about the minerals in DRC, it's not just Eastern DRC, though Eastern DRC has quite a chunk of the mineral deposits of DRC. The minerals have very little to do with the conflict in DRC. I've mentioned the nationalization interests of the M23 and the Tutsi-speaking Congolese. We must also note that you have over 50 fighting groups in eastern DRC. The M23 representing the minority Tutsis, you have the FDLR that is composed largely of Hutus who perpetrated the genocide and who fled into DR Congo. They control a certain part of eastern DRC. You now have the FARDC, the Congo Defense Forces. You have the Mai Mai. You have a group called Wazalendo who are after, eliminating the minority Tutsis, amongst many other fighting groups. Now, those fighting groups control mines across eastern DRC. They control, for example, the FDLR controls the lumber process, the whole supply chain of timber in eastern DRC. You can't harvest trees or transport trees without FDLR's approval. That has been exacerbated by the external interests in mineral deposits in Congo. You have Belgium, you have France, you have even Kenya. Kenya has interests in, at least certain figures within this country have interests in the DRC, in the mineral deposits of the DRC. Uganda also has interests. So the mineral question only exacerbates the political question. Hence now, the military action that we have seen in the past. South Africa now has a stake in some diamond mines within eastern DRC. So the mineral question just complicates the whole question. It is not the main issue. The main issue is the political question of the Tutsi minorities. One of the things that the meeting, first the EAC summit had, was to lose the diplomatic covers that our presidents have had over time. We have seen in the past now, in the last 2 weeks or so, President Paul Kagame of Rwanda has come out clear. He hasn't minced his words. He has not, maintained the covers that we are used to seeing presidents have. He has called out President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa. He has called out Tshisekedi, president of DRC, and he has called out the peace processes that have been in motion. The only thing that has achieved is that it has now brought certain sympathies to Paul Kagame, because he has come out clear saying certain people, certain presidents are pretenders. They were not for the process. They were there to earn a name. The other thing it has succeeded in doing is it has made the world, and more so the rest of the continent, become more aware of the conflict in DRC. We are not just seeing these things happening today. Congo has lost close to 5 million people since 1997 in this conflict. So that is a very huge number, and it is good that the meetings between the heads of state have pointed us to the very issue. The other thing that it has succeeded in doing is it is now pointing us to a direction where we are now realizing that South Africa may have rushed into Congo without first assessing the situation, without appreciating the history and the political context, as it were. Hopefully, that meeting between EAC and SADC member states will get us to a point of appreciating the political solutions that are open in this conflict. The role that Rwanda plays, and I don't want to sound cynical, but the role that they play is really a historical one, because it appears as though they are unfortunate to be neighbors of DRC. We have had reports that Rwanda has funded the M23, and what is lending credence to those rumors that Rwanda is funding the M23 is the fact that now we are seeing a better armed M23. They are better tooled. If you look at the videos, they have better uniforms, they have better equipment, and that, the money is coming from somewhere. Rwanda is an easy scapegoat because Rwanda has a dog in the fight. You have majority of Tutsis in Rwanda, and it appears as though Rwanda is supporting, their kindred in the DRC, the Tutsi minorities in the DRC. I have no evidence, and I don't think anyone has evidence that Rwanda is funding the M23. It is just that the M23 is composed of minority Tutsis, most of whom are domiciled in Rwanda, within the borders of Rwanda. It's a difficult solution, but one of the solutions is that they call him Fatshi. Felix Anton Tshisekedi leaves power because he has very little understanding of the political question in DRC. He has shown that he does not have enough control of the apparatus of government in DRC. The second thing that could happen is as simple as recognizing the minority Tutsis in the DRC, as simple as that, and reintegrating the M23 back into the DRC Defense Forces. That was on the table in 2000 when Laurent Kabila, Kagame and Museveni were at the table. That has been on the table with the Nairobi and Luanda processes. It is just a matter of implementation. So unless the rest of the DRC wants to annihilate the minority Tutsis in Eastern DRC, that would be the easiest solution. And M23 has expressed willingness to quickly cede ground if that very simple demand was met. There are prospects, but they are not immediate. So long as President Tshisekedi maintains his hard stance, for whatever reason, whether it is because he has business interests that are, bearing down on his neck, or for some other reason, if he maintains that stance, then the solution to the conflict in Congo is not going to come within this year. But if Tshisekedi maintains his stance, then we're likely to see a protracted conflict. And the M23 is willing to march into Kinsasha. They are very resolute because what they stand for is something that I think the rest of the world can see. It's self-actualization. So there is a possibility of resolution, but people have to let go of their egos.